Despite making slow and steady progress in many of our corporate careers, there still is a glass ceiling that we just can't seem to fully break. And one of the ways that we can do this is by taking another route. So we can ascend to the top faster if we don't have to climb the same corporate ladder that has held us back for so many years. And although I'm a little bit biased, I would say that embracing entrepreneurial consulting is one way to do just that. But many times there are key beliefs that are blocking us as women when we're trying to shatter those glass ceilings and reach our next level. And if we don't recognize our unique strengths, then this challenge, the challenge of breaking free from the status quo, is going to keep us stuck any longer. So in this episode, we're going to talk about how we can fix all of that. They say the odds are stacked against us as women, especially women of color, trying to thrive in the consulting world. But rather than wait for a seat at the table that may never come, what if we build our own tables? What if we channeled our talents into guiding each other towards the success we deserve? Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, and I've walked the path from healthcare consultant to a mentor for women like you, ambitious, unstoppable, and ready to make waves in the consulting world. This podcast is your go-to spot for all things entrepreneurial consulting for us as women, especially women of color. Think of it as your weekly coffee date with a friend who's here to dish out real talk on building a solid business, elevating your thought leadership, and mastering that all-important mindset. And let's not forget, we're doing all of this while balancing day jobs, family life, and running teams. Yes, we can do it all. So if you're ready to dive into how you can grow a thriving consultancy or get strategies and insights that actually fit your busy lifestyle, then you're in the right place. Grab your coffee, tea, or hey, even a glass of wine. I won't judge. And let's get started. Hello. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, and today I want to talk about breaking the glass ceiling. Now, this is something that we hear about often as women. We want to break through this glass ceiling that seems to be hanging on for dear life. I swear it's been there forever. And we're still just chipping away at it. And although we made a lot of progress over the years, especially over recent years, I would say within the last 1 to 2 decades, there's still a lot of work to be done. And when it comes to consulting, what I found is that there are many beliefs that we have about entering into this space that keeps us from showing up at our fullest potential. And because of that, I want to talk about some of these thoughts and where they come from and how we can get over them and get to the next level. Because we can't be walking around with all of these degrees and certifications and accolades and other acknowledgments and still be fighting for a seat at the table. That's not going to work, especially as women and most definitely as women of color. We are underrepresented. So let's talk about why this is occurring and how in the world do we get out of this space. When you look at the data, and I'm not making this up, if you actually look at data from the 2023 McKinsey study of women in the workplace, you'll see all of this information laid out for you. And in this annual study, they often look at women's representation as you move through the corporate pipeline. So this is looking from the point at which you are entering into the corporate space, so the point of entry up into the C-suite. And it's looking at the percent of women, men, women of color, men of color, et cetera, that transition over time at various levels. And if you actually look at this graph, the one thing that just stands out to me, and I will say, it has improved just a little bit recently from 2022 to 2023. But listen, this growth is minuscule compared to what it should be. But if you look at the numbers, there were 28% of women in the C-suite that were noted in this study. So, among all of the individuals that made it to the C-suite in the workplace, the highest level at which you can get to in this corporate space or climbing the corporate ladder, that was only 28%. So, the overwhelming majority were men. And I like to point this out because I think we often have the misconception that there is more diversity at that point than there actually is. And much of that belief actually stems from the fact that when you look at the entry level, 48% of individuals entering at the point of entry are women. So there is a significant amount of women, or a decent amount, almost even, that enter at that entry point. But when you look at the progress as you venture through from entry level to manager to senior manager, vice president, senior vice president, C suite, when you look at that transition, then we lose 20% of all women. And if you focus in on just women of color, unfortunately, that drops all the way down to 6%. 6%. So that's a huge challenge. Let's just be real about that. That's a huge challenge and it's a huge problem. So it's something that we have to take upon ourselves to find a solution for. One solution, of course, is to fight for more diversity, equity, and inclusion at that level in any corporate environment. We need to continue to fight that battle. But I'm going to take a different stance. And this is what I want to talk about in this podcast because I do feel like there are numerous other options for us to be able to generate a level of success that will oftentimes surpass what we could ever achieve in the corporate environment. And one way of doing this is through consulting. It is an easy way for you to take all of your knowledge, all of your skill, your expertise, and without a lot of financial backing, turn that into a business that can generate impact, legacy, and wealth. And this is why I think it's so important for us to understand what the true dynamic is for us as we are climbing the corporate ladder, and also recognize that we have options. So if you find yourself frustrated with the progress that you've been able to make, or you're constantly fighting for a seat at the table, instead, I want you to build your own. And this is possible. But although I am I'm the biggest cheerleader and I want to say that we can do it all and we can accomplish all of our goals with no challenges whatsoever, I'm realistic. And so I know that there are going to be things that could potentially stand in our way. And one of those things is our mind, our mindset, the things that we believe. But it's not the things that we believe because it's something that we inherently feel about ourselves. No, these are thoughts and beliefs that we have picked up over time based upon the experiences that we have had and what has society taught us. So, what we're dealing with is really multifaceted when you think about it. These are deeply, oftentimes, ingrained beliefs that have been passed down through generations and then reinforced by a lot of systemic inequalities. So, these thoughts, these beliefs make us question our ability to even start a business in the first place, let alone be successful at a high level. And when we hear these lies being whispered to us over and over again, telling us that we're not good enough, that we don't have what it takes, that we should be content with the scrapes that we get in terms of opportunity, then we are going to show up as less than what we have the capability of being. But the truth is that these beliefs, these things that we have been hearing or listening to, or possibly have been told from others, they're not the truth. They're mere myths. They are myths and illusions that keep us trapped in this cycle of self doubt and holds us back, really keeps us from reaching our fullest potential, especially in the realm of consulting where confidence is a key factor in how well we're able to serve as well as land business overall. So, when you think about being able to excel in this space, in our chosen path, and to really grow our thought leadership in our industry and take on this entrepreneurial journey wholeheartedly, we have to confront these limiting beliefs head on. We need to confront them. We need to dispel the myths that are holding us back, that are constraining us, and we need to replace them with the truth, not any type of fluffy language or things that aren't real. We need to replace them with the truth and the reality of our current situation. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about three of the most common limiting beliefs that women in consulting have that keep us stuck, stalled, and stagnant. Yes, we're going to talk about them and we're going to erase them today. But before we do, I want you to imagine a future where your expertise shapes industries, where it influences change and drives success, not just for your clients, but for your own life. Why? Well, it's because if you're trying to jumpstart your consulting business and you're trying to figure out what you need to do in order to get it started, to get everything off the ground, and to get your business rolling along, the Consulting Mastery Blueprint is for you. It's not just a roadmap, it's literally a gateway to the life you've been dreaming of, where freedom, impact, and financial prosperity are not just goals, but your reality. So whether you're aspiring to break free from the monotony of a 9 to 5 and dreaming of harnessing your entrepreneurial spirit, or you're ready for a rapid transition so you can leave the corporate world behind, or you're trying to seek momentum because you've already started, but you're just hitting some roadblocks and you need strategies to propel you forward, then this 5-day email course is what you need. So just click the link in the description, register now, and get started. So, one of the first limiting beliefs that many people have is that you must have decades of experience and multiple degrees to be quote unquote qualified to call yourself an expert. Now, this is the furthest thing from the truth. In consulting, there is a pervasive notion that in order to succeed, you must follow a set of, these unspoken traditional rules. These are the rules that people have supposedly played by for years and decades before. And really, many of these rules are old school, right? They are based upon a time and place where many of us as women, and especially as women of color, were not often found in the consulting world, not at a high level. And so these beliefs don't take into account much of what we are able to bring to the table. And it certainly doesn't take into account the fact that we're in a different point of time where we have access to so much information and digital technology and all of those things. So really, these old rules, these old beliefs are outdated, but the implications of these beliefs are significant. And when you think about the fact that, as I stated before, many people spend decades climbing the corporate ladder, trying to get to the C suite, playing by these rules, but once again, rarely reach that goal. Remember the 28% and the 6%? Yeah, we're not reaching our goal based upon using those outdated strategies. So, what we're doing instead is accumulating all of these accolades and degrees and certifications and although we have all that available to us, they seemingly do not carry the same weight or value as our white male counterparts. So, this is problematic and is one of the reasons why we have to rethink and reconsider how we look at and define expertise. Because if we're just assuming that expertise only comes with a span of time, meaning that you need to have been working for 2, 3, 4 decades in order to be qualified, that doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense from the mere fact that it fails to acknowledge how we acquire expertise today. It doesn't take into consideration how fast many of our industries are evolving. Just think about artificial intelligence, how that has completely changed the market space in virtually every industry. And the new categories of knowledge that have been able to emerge as a result. All of these things have shifted the way that we consume information and how we are able to establish our expertise. And so when we disregard that and we don't consider the impact of those short term changes, then what we're doing is really limiting our potential and the potential for innovation. Because if we discourage those who are more knowledgeable about some of these new innovations and technologies from being considered as experts in consulting and sharing their expertise, then how are we to grow as swiftly as we can in light of all of these new changes? So, what I would suggest is that instead of conforming to this very narrow view of what we think qualifies someone to be a consultant, meaning they have to work for so long, X number of years, or they need to have a PhD or a master's degree or whatever other credential that you want to name in your industry, I want you to look beyond that, look beyond those traditional paths. And I want you to start considering the fact that the value you bring is in your diverse experience. It's in how you've been able to acquire knowledge in a fast paced sector or in a non traditional industry. How you have taken on personal projects and pursuits that have allowed you to develop critical skills that others can only imagine. All of those things are highly valuable, even more so because they're rare. So I want us to consider the fact that we bring far more to the table than just a degree or a certification or a number of years. It's not that having these things are not beneficial, but to disqualify yourself because you don't have those things, such as the time or the degree, it just doesn't make sense because your experience, your practical knowledge, the fact that you have helped others solve major problems and that you have a special knowledge base and expertise in a given area that can help drastically shift a organization, a business, or someone else's life, do not discredit that. So, the first limited belief we have to get rid of is that you must have decades of experience and multiple degrees to be qualified to call yourself an expert. That is untrue. And as long as you're able to think outside the box and embrace your unique journey, then that is what you can use to build your credibility. Now, the second limiting belief that I really want to dispel is that you need to quit your job and go all in to get started. Let me just start here. I can use myself as an example. I did not quit my job in order to get started in consulting. Number one, I was already working as a consultant. But two, working in healthcare, I know that there is a lot of work that I still wanted to do that required me being affiliated with a hospital. So there can be a number of circumstances that may prevent you from deciding to leave your corporate job or your 9 to 5 right away. One may just be the amount of money that you're making. Whatever you're making right now, more than likely is what you have based your lifestyle on. And so you may not want to up and just drop everything and go broke and go all in order to start your business. For many of us, we can't. Many of us as women are breadwinners in our home. Many of us as women have others to care for, whether it's our children or if it's aging parents. And shoot, you may just want to travel. You may just want to have extra money to invest in travel. Whatever the reason is for you to want to keep your job as you get started, you owe no one an explanation, and it does not mean that you will not be successful. There are many entrepreneurs out there that will tell you that you need to throw away everything, go all in, put 100% of your time and energy behind your new endeavor in order to be successful. And while this approach may work for some people, it may work for some people, it may be impractical for many. And if this is something that does not seem feasible for you right now, don't let that stop you. Don't let that be something that keeps you from moving forward, because giving up your job right away is not necessary. You can do both. You can still have your corporate career and build your consulting practice on the side. So I want you, instead of thinking about this as kind of like a black and white issue, I want you to start small if necessary. Think about how you can test the waters by taking on small projects or maybe freelance gigs. This will help you build your consulting business without having that financial pressure weighing on you to land clients right away. It will help you to feel more comfortable and make a smooth transition on your own time, on your own schedule. And another thing that I think is really helpful, and this definitely was super helpful for me, is that by having this financial backing, you become your first investor. Your 9 to 5, the job that you're working, becomes the investment that you're able to place into your business and get it started and up and running without taking on extra debt and other loans and other responsibility. It also can make it a lot easier for you to work at a steady pace, for you to make good decisions, and for you to sell, because you're not selling out of desperation. You are able to have a solid and stable financial footing while you get started. That is a great option. And like I said, if you want to go all in and you have the ability to do so, that's fine too. For some people, it may be a matter of saving up and then taking a set amount of time in order to get their business up and running. Maybe you're going to give yourself a year or two and work off the money that you have saved in order to get that business going. Whatever decision you make, I want it to be yours. And just know that you do not have to quit your job if you don't want to. So, if that has been something that has been stopping you, erase that right now, because your journey does not have to look like anybody else's, and it is not an all or nothing scenario. You are building a business that is going to work for your lifestyle. And as long as you can be disciplined and consistent in your intake and actions and in the work that you're doing, then you're going to be successful. So that's with or without that career. I just want it to be your choice, not anyone else's. So if you had the belief that you need to quit your job, your 9 to 5, in order to get started, that's not true. That's far from true. So many of us, myself included, have been able to devote significant time, energy, and resources into our businesses and been successful at it. So if you need to talk to anyone to remind you, then I will remind you time and time again that you can definitely, definitely, definitely make a smooth transition. So that's limiting belief number 2. Now, limiting belief 3, and this one is one that I felt was great to close on, because this is something that I feel like definitely impacts a lot of women, but even more so women of color. And this is that you can't land clients if you don't have a large, well connected network or not an extrovert. And I said that this often impacts women of color heavily, is because if you just look at the numbers and the stats that we discussed before, and I can bring out many, many more, when you look at the ability to connect with those in the C suite that may look like you or be from a similar background, if you're a woman of color, that's going to be few and far between. Now, this does not mean that you cannot develop a solid network, because you certainly can. But it does make it more difficult for us to reach the level of connections and the size of network that many of our counterparts may be able to more easily attain. And this can also be true if you are one of the first in your family to even go to college and to get advanced degrees. And that's the case for many of us. And if that's the case, then maybe the people who are part of your network are not necessarily in your industry, especially if you are in an industry such as science or technology. The point is that we are not always playing on an even playing field when it comes to having a large and well connected network. So, with that being said, we have to find ways around that. Now, just because you don't have one doesn't mean that that should stop you. Because if you're worried about your network size, I want you to instead focus on showcasing your expertise through platforms like LinkedIn or industry forums or by publishing insightful content. I want you to think about ways that you can actually attract the clients that you need and you want to serve to your front door. And you can do this. The thing about referrals and networking is that you are relying on someone to help you meet an individual who may need your service. They can vouch for you. They can be a form of social proof for you. And that is extremely helpful. But you have the ability to attract that business yourself. You can actually remove the middle person and make that same connection. So, we just want to think about ways that we can more effectively do that. And it doesn't mean that you have to be super extroverted and the life of the party, because actually, in all actuality, a lot of introverts make phenomenal consultants because they are often very perceptive, very attentive. They often have high emotional intelligence and are good at observation and active listening. There are a lot of soft skills that go with people being more introverted that can be very helpful in the consulting space. So I don't want you to ever think that you need to be an extrovert or be very outspoken in order to be successful. That is not the case. As a matter of fact, I was listening to a podcast recently. It was Creator Science Podcast, and it was an episode that interviewed April Dunford. This was actually very recently in January of this year in 2024 is when I'm recording this. And that particular episode was all about how self publishing a book exploded her client service business. And if you don't know anything about her, April Dunford wrote the book, Obviously Awesome. And it's a book that I just love. It's a book on positioning, and it has been just well known and referenced over time, talking about how to position services. She works in the IT or tech space, and so she talks about positioning tech brands. And one of the things that she mentions in this episode is how, although she had connections and had a network when she left her job, it was nothing compared to the business she was able to attain after she published her book and she began to take on larger speaking engagements and, be involved in more industry publications and things of that nature as a result of her thought leadership. So I want us to know that no matter what size of your network, it's never going to be big enough for you to just solely rely on your referrals and your network. You want to have another way to be able to attract and draw in the business that you need. And you can do this through other means. So you don't have to have just a reliance on having a huge network and being an extrovert and knowing everyone. Don't let that be something that holds you back. That is a limiting belief. That is not necessary. So instead, the key is sharing your knowledge and insights on a platform that's designed to meet the people that need your help and for you to just show up, be more visible, allow your ideas to spread with the help of others. Get out there, let people know who you are, who you serve, and what you do. So it's my hope that after this episode, you are equipped to challenge some of these limiting beliefs. I don't want you having any excuse not to move forward and pursue your dream. If you want to start a thriving consulting business, or if you're trying to scale your consulting business to the next level, then I want you to know that you can do that despite the number of years that you have in your career under your belt, despite whatever degrees you may or may not have, despite whether or not you have a large influential network, or despite whether you're introvert versus extrovert, the bottom line is that you are talented, that you have unique strengths and expertise that will help others. And what we need to do is get that out there. We need that out there because your insight, the perspective that you have, is not the norm. It is missing. The fact that you are a woman, especially a woman of color, listen to this episode right now, lets me know that you think on a different level, that you have so much more to offer, and that your experiences don't look like anybody else that's out there building their business. That's why you need to be there too. So, please, please, please don't let any of these thoughts hold you back. And as you move forward, I want you to always remind yourself that if you embrace your unique strengths, if you start small if you need to, and you remember that your success as a consultant is not just about how many years you have under your belt, who you know, or how expert you are, but about the value you can deliver through your work. All about the value. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, leave your review on Apple Podcasts. It helps the podcast grow. And I would just be so grateful if you're able to do that. And then also, don't forget to reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I love to hear from you guys. Whenever you tell me that you listen to episodes and it's helped you, it just helps to just, I don't know, fuel my momentum to keep going. And then also just knowing that this podcast is having an impact, which is what I truly desire. So until next time, take care. Thank you for tuning in to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave your review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share it with a friend. We're on a mission to increase the success and longevity of women in consulting, and you can help us do just that. Also, I'd love to hear from you. So let's connect at Dr. Angelina Davis on Instagram or LinkedIn. And don't forget to visit excelatconsulting.com for more information to support your consulting journey. Until next time, keep breaking glass ceilings. All right, take care.